Steve Jobs versus Bill Gates. From friendship to rivalry, from rivalry to legacy. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates are two names that define the modern digital age. They were not just businessmen. They were not just innovators. They were rivals whose competition shaped the technology we use every day. Their relationship moved through many stages, from early friendship to deep rivalry, to public criticism, and finally, to quiet mutual respect. This is the full story of Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. Two childhoods, two paths. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates were born only months apart. Steve Jobs was born on February 24, 1955, in California. Bill Gates was born on October 28, 1955, in Seattle, Washington. From the beginning, their lives were very different. Steve Jobs was adopted and raised by a working-class family. He grew up surrounded by electronics and hands-on craftsmanship. Bill Gates was raised in a wealthy, educated family. He had access to elite schools and early computer systems. Jobs was emotional, rebellious, and artistic. Gates was logical, disciplined, and competitive. Both were intelligent, but in very different ways. Early passion for computers. As teenagers, both men fell in love with computers. Steve Jobs was fascinated by how technology could change human life. He cared less about rules and more about ideas. Gates became obsessed with software and programming. He spent countless nights writing code and learning how computers think. By their early 20s, both men were already working to change the world. Jobs co-founded Apple with Steve Wozniak. Microsoft co-founded Microsoft with Paul Allen. Neither knew yet that they would become rivals. The early friendship. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, Apple and Microsoft were not enemies. In fact, Microsoft worked for Apple. Apple needed software for the Macintosh computer. Microsoft needed customers. Steve Jobs admired Bill Gates' intelligence. Bill Gates admired Apple's innovation. Microsoft created software for Apple, including Word and Excel for Mac. Gates was allowed inside Apple's offices. He saw Apple's future plans, designs, and ideas. At this time, Steve trusted Gates. They talked about the future. They believed they were building something together. The graphical interface conflict. The relationship began to change when Microsoft started developing Windows. Windows used a graphical user interface, windows, icons, menus, and a mouse. Steve Jobs felt shocked. He believed Microsoft had copied Apple's ideas. Jobs accused Microsoft of stealing Apple's vision. Jobs famously said that Microsoft had no taste and no originality. Gates disagreed. He believed Apple did not invent the graphical interface, and that innovation builds on shared ideas. This disagreement destroyed their trust. From friends to rivals. By the mid-1980s, Apple and Microsoft were direct competitors. Steve Jobs wanted Apple to control both hardware and software. Bill Gates wanted Microsoft software to run on every computer. These two strategies could not coexist peacefully. The rivalry became personal. Steve openly attacked Gates in interviews. He mocked Microsoft's design and creativity. Gates responded differently. He stayed calm, avoided emotional attacks, and focused on business. The rivalry was no longer friendly. The fall of Steve Jobs. In 1985, Steve Jobs was forced out of Apple. The company he founded removed him from power. This moment changed everything. Without Jobs, Apple lost its identity. Without Apple, Jobs felt lost. Meanwhile, Microsoft grew stronger. Windows became the dominant operating system. Microsoft Office became a global standard. To the world, it looked like Bill Gates had won. The 1990s, Microsoft's golden age. During the 1990s, Microsoft ruled the tech world. Bill Gates became the richest man on Earth. Windows was everywhere, in schools, offices, and homes. Apple struggled to survive. Many believed Apple would disappear. Steve Jobs watched from the outside, but he was not finished. Steve Jobs' quiet rebuild. After leaving Apple, Jobs founded Next. Next computers failed commercially, but the software was advanced. Jobs also invested in Pixar. Pixar struggled at first, but then came Toy Story. The movie changed animation forever. Steve Jobs proved he was still a visionary. The shocking reunion. In 1997, Apple was near bankruptcy. Ironically, Apple bought Next, bringing Steve Jobs back. Steve Jobs became CEO again. One of his first decisions shocked the world. He partnered with Microsoft. Microsoft invested $150 million in Apple. Microsoft promised to continue supporting Mac software. When Jobs announced this on stage, Apple fans booed. Behind him, Bill Gates appeared on a giant screen. It was the ultimate symbol of rivalry and survival. Jobs understood something important. Pride must come second to vision. Rivalry with respect. After this moment, the tone changed. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates were still rivals, but no longer enemies. They respected each other's strengths. Steve admired Bill Gates' business discipline. Gates admired Apple's design genius. They criticized each other, but honestly. Jobs said Gates would have been better if he studied art. Gates said Steve Jobs was a genius at motivating people. Both were right. Two philosophies that shaped the world. Steve Jobs believed in control, beauty, and experience. Bill Gates believed in scale, access, and practicality. Apple changed how technology feels. Microsoft changed how technology spreads. Their rivalry pushed innovation forward. Without Gates, Apple might not have survived. Without Jobs, technology might not feel human. The iPhone era. When Apple launched the iPhone in 2007, everything changed. Microsoft was unprepared. Steve had once again reshaped the industry. Bill Gates later admitted that Microsoft missed mobile innovation. The rivalry had shifted, but it never disappeared. The final years. In his final years, Steve Jobs softened. He spoke less about rivalry and more about legacy. He acknowledged Bill Gates' impact on the world. Bill Gates, in return, spoke with respect about Steve Jobs. When Steve Jobs passed away in 2011, Bill Gates said he was brilliant. He changed the world. The rivalry ended, but the impact remained. Conclusion. Not hate, but fire. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates did not truly hate each other. They challenged each other. They pushed each other. Their rivalry created progress. History remembers them not as enemies, but as two forces that shaped the digital age.